Kia ora. I am Susan Barker and I'm the fundraising and communications manager for Women's Refuge. I am here today to talk to you virtually about community kindness. I've been asked to do this by Sunny Sunday, and thank you on behalf of Women's Refuge for giving us the chance to talk about this because it is important. And thank you guys for what you do. I love your ethos. I think we could totally use more positive messages in the world. So what I want to do is just talk about community kindness in the context of Women's Refuge and the work that we do. I think ideally what community kindness looks like is that we're all looking out for each other, that we care about our neighbors, we care about the people in our networks, and we show them respect and kindness. That concept seems easy on the surface, but working at Women's Refuge, I've found that it's really easy for people to judge other people when they see that they're in a situation that they think that they wouldn't have gotten into themselves. And to talk about this, I am going to talk about a personal experience of mine, which I've never done before, but I think would be helpful in regards to family violence. When I was growing up, my sister was 11 years older than me. She married the guy that she dated all throughout high school. She only dated him. And as the years went by, he became more controlling and more abusive, and we as a family really didn't know what to do about it. So I think that the opposite of kindness is judgment sometimes. And I personally, through that experience, had moments where I judged my sister. I thought, how can you stay in this relationship? Why don't you just leave? I would never be in a relationship with someone like that. I would just leave. How hard is it just to walk out the door? Since working at Women's Refuge, I know it's extremely hard to walk out that door. And since being in a relationship myself where I have children, I can't even imagine how the women who enter our services even do it to begin with. It is a monumental decision, and it takes a lot of strength to do. And my sister is no longer in this abusive relationship, by the way, but I did judge her. That doesn't mean that I didn't offer her kindness, but I offered her kindness with judgment, which I think, in retrospect, was not really kindness. I would do things like buy her nappies for her kids when she didn't have any because her husband controlled the finances and she couldn't access the money, and what he wanted came first. So I would take the nappies to her and I would offer her this kindness, and I would make a comment about, oh, why don't you just move back home? What are you doing? And I really regret that now, and I would say that my eyes have been opened a great deal to what my sister was actually going through. To be truly kind, you have to keep in mind, especially when there's somebody in your life or your community that you think might be experiencing family violence, that to leave will be the hardest and biggest thing this person ever does. And in fact, telling someone that they should just leave is probably extremely dangerous because most homicides occur when someone tries to leave because that person is losing control. And abuse doesn't happen overnight. when my sister first went out with this guy, he was Prince Charming. And that's how it usually starts. And abuse starts in little ways, like, can I get you to call me when you get somewhere? It just makes me feel better to know that you're safe. I don't want you to hang out with this person because I don't think they like me and I think they're jealous of our love. I think it would be better if I handled the finances, so that I'm really good with money and I can just take care of you. You trust me, right? That's how these things start out. They don't start out with physical assault. By the time we get to the point of physical assault, we are talking an extremely dangerous situation. And I guess if I could say anything about community kindness is just check on people. Just try not to judge them. Try not to think, I am smart. I'm smarter than them. I would never end up in this situation, because you never know. I can tell you that almost all the women that I work with at Women's Refuge have this experience, that when we first come into the office and we do our training around what family violence looks like, we look at a checklist of red flags that happen in the beginning of a relationship that could indicate that this is not a healthy relationship. And almost everybody I know has looked at that list and been like, oh my gosh, I can think of 2 or 3 relationships from my past that had all these red flags. And it's not surprising. 1 in 3 women in New Zealand will experience physical abuse in their relationship, and if you count psychological abuse, that's 1 in 2. I think some of us were lucky enough that the relationship didn't get to the point of physical violence, that we didn't attach ourselves in the way of having children or set up barriers that were too hard for us to leave. And I now know that it wasn't that I was so much smarter than my sister. I was probably just luckier. And I think a lot of people who are in these situations could do with some empathy and some community kindness. I know for a fact that at Women's Refuge, that is one of our major objectives, is to offer kindness without judgment. We have women who will call our crisis line every day for months and months before they're ready to make the decision to leave. And we have a policy that it doesn't matter how long it takes you, it doesn't matter how many attempts it takes you, we're going to be here and we're not going to judge you. And that is extremely, extremely important. So I think within communities, we need to offer this non-judgmental kindness. Like I said, check in with people that you know. If you know somebody whose relationship isn't great, just check with them, see if they need anything. They might need nappies, they might need some personal care items, and if you can, help them out, and help them out without strings attached, because you may not be solving the whole picture for them. That may come later, but you are making that day easier, and you are getting them through that day. And I guess the other part of community kindness that I'd really like to talk about is that Women's Refuge itself couldn't function without community kindness. And I mean that in the way that our refuges in local communities, they really depend on those communities to support them through donations of food or clothing and things like that. And I'm always astounded by the kindness that I see in communities that think, you know what, we have all this extra food or we have extra clothes. I'm sure there's a woman out there who could use it, or somebody out there that can use it, and they take the time to bring it to us. And something an advocate said to me the other day really resonated, and she said that she had a client come in and she gave her some personal care items and some clothing that had been donated. And she teared up and said, "Is this really for me? Surely there's somebody who needs it more than me." And the advocate said, "No, this is from the community. Your community is backing you right now." And it was a real emotional moment. This woman felt like there was nobody in the world for her, and to feel like her community was supporting her through this incredibly difficult time just meant the world to her. So I hope this isn't too jointed of a little talk, but I just hope that we can all look at each other without judgment and just offer kindness, offer to help with one little thing. We don't have to solve the whole problem, but I can promise you that every little thing you do in the community with kindness is just amazing. I've seen it with our clients all the time. The littlest gesture can make all the difference. Okay, that's about my time, but thank you.